I very distinctly remember going shopping with my mom. And I absolutely hated it. You'll excuse me, my voice is a bit husky. I'm recovering from a cold. And I hated it because mom would drag us from one end of town to the other, because different supermarkets had different prices for different things, and mom knew the price of everything in every supermarket. So we'd buy sugar here, and then move on to the next supermarket to buy tea leaves because they were cheaper. And I made a resolution that when I grew up, I'd have money, lots of money. And I'd do all my shopping in one shop, and I'd buy everything I wanted. Sounds like a good resolution, right? Wrong. Like the other speakers here, I also need to be a shareholder in Nakumat, because the amount of money I spent at Nakumat buying not just peanut butter, premium, skippy, smooth, soft peanut butter, Cloud soft toilet paper, forget where it goes, but it's the most expensive, and those things. And I bought them because I could. But then I didn't realize that our experiences, which is what we learned in the first class, as Willis has said, our experiences inform our beliefs about money when we're growing up, from which we create patterns. And how we spend money comes from those beliefs and the patterns that we have created when we were small. I did all those things because I could, and I felt good about it. But did it add any value to my life? At the moment when I'm in the supermarket, and I most of the times picked the biggest trolley, even if I was going to buy milk, it was never going to be just milk. I'm in the supermarket and I have money. And it's only after attending Centonomy that I realized my experiences when I was growing up, and experiences are not necessarily fact, is how you interpreted things when you were a child, how they affected my thoughts as an adult and my behaviors as an adult, and why now I lived in cycles of feast to famine. And I needed to perhaps see a shrink to just unbundle who I was. For example, like I really struggled with asking for help. And after that first Centonomy class is when I realized why I struggle asking for financial help, even from my husband. I'd rather walk from here to town than beg for money. So that was my introduction to Centonomy, and I was like, wow. And I went home that day and I sat and had conversations with myself, and I called my sister and we had a conversation, and we realized we are in deep trouble. Because after a while and then having discussions with your parents, what you assumed was what was happening was not necessarily the case. It's just how you interpreted it, and it totally messes up or changes your life. And it becomes either a self-propelling or a self-defeating cycle, because you're living based on your assumptions of what life should be. And so this vitally important first lesson laid the groundwork for me. And it's still work in progress. You know, unbundling those beliefs, unbundling those patterns, unbundling what you created your experiences to be. If you've lived with those things for decades, it takes a while to unbundle them. And it's work in progress. It's nothing that can be done in 11 weeks, but the start is important. When I signed up for Centonomy in 2012, that's when I first went into Centonomy, my finances were in a royal mess. I had signed up for school early that year, with no plan of how I was going to pay for it, but it needed to be done that year. And I had a number of loans. Some of them were useless SACCO loans, which are useless in the sense that I cannot now touch and feel what I did with that money. You need to sort out something, and SACCO is easy, and they tell you it's 1% interest. So you go and get 20%, you go and get 20,000, you go and get 50,000. Things that should not be a surprise. Car insurance is due, you go and take a loan. And I had a very large loan that I was paying for an ill-researched investment that fell through. And beyond the principal, I was left paying over 500,000 shillings in interest. So money was was a taboo subject. So I was running away. I mean, conversations about money, don't talk to me about money. I'm doing really, really badly. But in the meantime, let's sit and have lunch, a group of friends, and everyone gives 5,000 shillings for the lunch, but things are really bad. The same thing Washake was saying. And I was so mentally stuck in debt that in class, I remember once or twice people raising hands to ask, so if I have 200,000 shillings that I would like to invest, what would I do with it? And I used to look at them and really hate them. How can you have 200 shillings just sitting in your account? What's wrong with you? Do you know how hard life is? And eventually, after class 5 or 6, I dropped out of class because of work commitments, family, school. But the honest truth is, I didn't understand what the rest of the classes were going to do for me. It was about estate planning and investments. What am I planning? What investments do I have? I have so much debt. But there was the very, very uncomfortable lesson of tracking where every shilling goes. And you do that over the entire period, and that started. And also a lesson you learn on debt management. Those two combined changed my life. Because then I started tracking and I realized in a week, I've spent 30,000 shillings. I haven't bought new sofa sets or I haven't bought new curtains. It's just Mr. Tulsha and, many other things. And you start tracking and you start realizing that every time you do a transaction on M-Pesa, it costs you 30 shillings. I didn't even know at that point that Standard Chartered Bank charges me 7 shillings and 50 cents every time I do. And you start noticing these things. So from that and tracking my spending and reducing my spending, which I'm still struggling with, but I managed within 1.5 years to clear all my loans. And for me, that was wow. I thought, man, I'm stuck in this because the loan, I was to repay it, I think, in 5 years. But being able to do it in 1.5 years, I realized the sun is out there and it's shining. Life is good. And that got me unstuck. So I called Joanne and I said, I want to come back. And she said, okay, sign up, which I did. And now the rest of the lessons, again from lesson 1, they had new meaning to me because now I was in the right frame of mind. When I was joining in 2012, I was going to figure out how to get out of debt. Now that I am out of debt, I need to create wealth. And why do I need to create wealth? Because I realized from going through Centonomy that I had abdicated my responsibility for my future to my employer, current and future, because the next job I'm going to get, I'm going to earn this kind of money. I'd abdicated the responsibility of my future and the future of my children to my husband. I mean, he married me, he had better know how to take care of me. But husbands die and husbands leave. And I'd ceded that power, and I needed to take that power back. There should something happen to my job. There should something happen to my husband, touch wood, that life wouldn't crumble. And I realized that my husband and I combined need to earn at the very least 4 times our current earning in the next 5 years to continue taking our children to the schools we do, and the one who's not in school to go to the school that we want her to go to, and for my son who's in Form 2 to go to the kind of university that he wants to do. That for me was shocking. I mean, children wanakuja na baraka zao. Washeke tells you, no, it doesn't happen like that. And I realized that my dream of having a large farm with a wooden cottage, I can draw it in my head, with fat cows that sleep on mattresses, is not about to happen. Because I wasn't planning for it. And I've lived through the grace of God, and God has been good, but I've been abusing that grace. So I learned that I have to start creating multiple streams of income. And one that will eventually, in a few years, not need my physical presence. That in 5 years, I will ensure that my children are still in school. And I will not have to change my lifestyle. Maki, when I say 4 times our current income, We are not upgrading anything. I will still be driving the jalopy I'm driving, and still, hopefully, if I don't put on too much weight, wearing the same clothes. But if I need to upgrade my lifestyle, we need to earn collectively, in 5 years, at least 5 times our current income. That staggers you and makes you realize that the future is very clear. Centonomy gives you a very clear picture of a bleak future if you don't change how you're living your life. And for me, that was very important, because in my life, in my education, in my social networks, no one tells you these things. And there are people who learn about money from home when they're growing up by their parents, and you know, almost every person says their mom taught them how to put aside money. My mom didn't teach me that. So for me, Centonomy taught me things that I will teach my children, that everyone needs to learn from a certain age. So wealth creation, armed with carefully thought out short, mid, and long-term financial goals, and more importantly, how much they're going to cost. I still want to do a family holiday every year, and it should not be a surprise that December is here and the kids ask, Mom, we're only going to Shags again this year. It should not be a surprise. And how much they're going to cost. So now I'm better able to plan on how I'm going to finance these things. And my non-financial assets, which when you go through the class, if you do go through the class, you will learn that your non-financial assets are what are going to create for you wealth. Remember, I didn't have any financial assets to bank on. I'm a member of Toastmasters, like Willis. And through Toastmasters, I've honed my public speaking, communication, and leadership skills, which through my work, I've gotten to improve them. And I've spoken at a lot of non-work and work events, and people call me and say, I'd like you to speak to this group of people. Yeah, where is it? When? If you're providing transport, I'm up. And after going through Centonomy, someone asked me, and I said, okay, are you paying for it? He said, yeah, sure, how much? So I wondered, let me check my diary, then I'll get back, because I'd never charged for it. And once you start using your non-financial assets, you realize, wow, people are actually interested in wanting to learn how to speak confidently. And people have come to me and they want to be coached on how to speak off the cuff or to speak confidently. Or I have a big presentation at work and you help me put it together. And for whatever money you make from that, I make from that, it's money that wasn't there. And it's money that now I will not use for the next lunch with my friends where we're each going to give 10,000 shillings, but it's money that will go towards the family holiday or the car insurance so that it's now not a surprise. And I also, in 2013, started experimenting with oils and butters. Mainly for my hair. When you go natural, there's a whole revolution around it. And so I started experimenting and with oils and butters for my hair, which I applied on my skin one day and my skin loved it. And I used it for a while. And I gave to my sister who used it. And she has very sensitive skin. And it worked for her. Then I gave it to a few friends. And the friends came back and they wanted to buy. And I'm thinking, oh, you mean you could actually buy this? And it started growing like that. And I had a baby last year in July. So I was using that body butter. I came up with a formula which I settled on, and I used it on my big belly to moisturize, and I didn't have a single stretch mark, which I told a friend who was pregnant, and she used it, and she didn't have a single stretch mark. And it started growing, and I realized I'm sitting on something which I do because I want to do, but that could grow to create wealth for me. And for me, these two are what I've settled on as wealth creation ventures, because these are things that I could do and have done for free. I'm not the kind of person who would hear that accounting will make money, so I go and learn how to do accounting to make money. I hate figures, I hate numbers, because I would get bored with time. But these are things that I can do for free, and the fact that they're bringing me in money is amazing. So I just have to focus on making time to dedicate time and make time to grow in them, and I'm sure they will grow. And I still want to keep my 8 to 5, because I enjoy it, and it gives me access to networks which will be useful in future. So for me, Centonomy has not only changed my life, it is changing the lives of the generations that will spring forth from me. Because I'm at a better place to create wealth, not to make money. Money you can make from many other things. To create wealth, and for me, wealth creation is beyond being able to take care of your needs. It's also understanding that, one, it's your responsibility. My life is my responsibility, my children are my responsibility, my dreams are my responsibility. Two, that peer pressure is real, and it just doesn't apply to children. But being in a place where you're able to withstand the peer pressure of having flosets or living in a certain kind of way or being seen in certain places and still achieve your objectives, that for me was important. And thirdly, that there's nothing that's not possible. If you go through the class, you'll hear of many examples of people who have made money. I remember in our group we were being told of a guy who used to go to China and come back with handkerchiefs in his travel bag. The handkerchiefs that you buy from the hawkers for 15 bob. He comes and brings and sells to the hawkers at 5 bob. How many handkerchiefs can you carry in your handbag? And that's how he created an empire, and someone who came and brought a container of razor blades. I mean, the opportunities for creating wealth are immense, and Centonomy doesn't teach you new to the world ideas. There's nothing new, like, you've never had before that Centonomy teaches you. It just brings to consciousness what we should know, what we must know, what we run away from knowing. But more importantly, it gives you the tools on how to deal with what you should know. Now that you know it, what are you going to do about it? And it's your choice. You choose what you want to do with it or not.